Hey everyone, what happens when life ends? Is that it? Lights out? Nothing? Or maybe you've lived a good life. You go to heaven, lived a bad one, straight to hell. One shot, final judgment, forever. That never made sense to me. Think about it. A baby dies at 2 days old. Where do they go? They haven't been baptized yet. They didn't get a chance to do anything good or bad. Do they skip the whole experience? Do they go straight to hell? Do they go straight to heaven? And if so, what was the point? Everyone, my name's Steve Mancini. This is a Distributed Mind. And in this episode, we're going to explore what the research actually says happens when we die, and why the data points to something far more interesting than the simple stories we've been told. If you haven't watched episode 1 yet, I'd encourage you to check that out. So I'll link it here. What we did there is we laid out the foundation for the distributed mind theory. The idea that your brain, it's not generating consciousness, it's actually accessing it. Your brain is more like the smartphone. Consciousness is more like the cloud. Today, we're going to stress test this whole theory with some math, and then walk through what thousands of people have reported happen in the moments after death. Let's dig in. I want to start with a question that hit me in the shower one morning. If you recorded your entire life in a 4K video, say 24 hours a day from birth to death, how much storage would that take? Let's keep it simple. The average lifespan is around 74 years. That's roughly 2.3 billion seconds of footage. Even with good compression, you're looking at somewhere between 5 to 9 petabytes of data. That's 5 to 9 million gigabytes. Now, how much can the human brain store? This is testable. Neuroscientists estimate somewhere between 2.5 to 3.5 petabytes. So, we're already way more than what the human brain can store if we recorded every second of every day in 4K. So, and that's just the raw visual recording. But here's where it gets interesting. People who have had near-death experiences don't just report seeing their life flash before their eyes. They report a life review, a comprehensive replay of their entire existence, and not just from their own perspective. They describe seeing moments through the eyes of other people. They feel what those people felt, the joy they caused, the pain they inflicted, the ripple effects of their actions on the people that they never met. Stop and think about that for a second. That information was never stored in their brain. They never experienced those perspectives, so they couldn't have recorded it. So where's it coming from? If consciousness is just neurons firing, if the brain is the hard drive, then this is impossible. But if the brain is the interface and consciousness is connected to something larger, then suddenly the life review makes perfect sense. You're not playing back local storage, you're accessing the cloud. So, what does the research say actually happens when we die? Dr. Michael Newton was a hypnotherapist who spent decades conducting deep regression sessions, over 7,000 of them. But he wasn't regressing people to their past lives. Well, he was, but more realistically, he was taking them to the space between their lives. What he found was remarkable. Thousands of unrelated people, different backgrounds, different beliefs, different parts of the world. They described the same sequence of events, the same structure, the same experience. His two books, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls, document these findings in detail. I highly recommend you check them out. And while I'd encourage you to read them yourself, I want to walk you through these stages because they paint a picture of consciousness that was very different from what most of us were taught. Now, I want to be clear. There are some variations here. The experiences aren't identical for everyone. How advanced your soul is, the circumstances of your death, these things can create differences. Some souls get stuck. Some take detours. We're going to explore these variations in a future episode, including what ghosts might tell us about consciousness. It's all in there. But for now, let's walk through the typical journey. Stage 1, separation. The moment of death. People constantly describe floating above their body. They can see the scene below, the hospital room, the accident, the people around them. Many describe a profound sense of relief, total peace. The pain is gone. There's a lightness, a freedom. From a distributed mind perspective, think of it this way. The edge device has gone offline. Your brain's offline. But the connection to the network remains. You're no longer limited to the hardware. So that brings us to stage 2, the tunnel. Next comes movement. People describe being drawn through darkness towards the light. Some experience this as a tunnel. Others describe it as more like traveling through space. The speed varies. Some move slowly, some rapidly. I find this fascinating because it suggests a transition, like switching from one network protocol to another. You're moving from the physical realm to something else. Then we have stage 3, homecoming. This is where it gets emotional. As you emerge from the tunnel, you're greeted. Sometimes it's loved ones who pass before you. Sometimes it's beings you don't recognize from your current life, but somehow you know them. You recognize them not by their appearance, but by their energy, their signature. Newton's subject constantly described an overwhelming sense of love and welcome. You're coming home. You're rejoining the souls you've always been connected to, your soul group, the beings you've incarnated with across multiple lifetimes. Then we have stage 4, the life review. And then comes the review. Now, this isn't a judgment. It's not God on a throne pointing out your sins. It's more like a comprehensive debrief. You know that scene in The Matrix? I love The Matrix, where Neo finally reaches the source and meets the architect? He's standing in this room, and behind him are hundreds of screens, all playing different moments, different angles, different versions of his existence. Everything is being accessed simultaneously. That's actually a pretty solid description of what people describe in the life review. You experience your entire life, not just your perspective. You feel the impact of your actions on others. Every kindness, every cruelty, every moment that mattered. You experience it from all angles. It's all there, playing out ahead of you, accessible in an instant. Newton documents a case in Journey of Souls that stuck with me. A subject was reliving a moment from childhood, a day on the playground where he had made fun of another kid. We've all been there, right? Just typical childhood cruelty. The kind most of us have been guilty of at some point. Nothing extreme, but during the life review, he didn't just see himself doing it. He became the other child. He felt the humiliation, the loneliness, the way that moment sat with that kid for weeks afterwards. He experienced the full weight of something he'd forgotten 50 years ago, from the perspective of the person he'd hurt. And here's what's remarkable. He said it wasn't punishment, it was educational. He wasn't being condemned. He was being shown. He was finally understanding the complete impact of a moment he'd never thought twice about. That's the life review. You're not judged, you're shown. And this is where the distributed mind theory, clicks into place, because there's no way your brain stored the other kid's experience. That data, the emotions, the aftermath, the ripple effects, that had to be stored somewhere else and accessed during the review. Next, we have stage 5. What comes next? After the review, souls describe meeting with guides, joining their soul groups, and eventually, when they're ready, planning their next incarnation. But that's content for a future episode because there's a ton to unpack there. Today, I want to stay focused on the life review because I experienced something recently that brought this concept to life for me. A few weeks ago, I had dinner with my uncle. A few weeks ago, I had dinner with my dad and my uncle Bob. Bob's 84 years old, still sharp, still healthy, drives a Corvette. At some point during dinner, Bob said something that surprised me. He said he was disappointed in his life, that he had felt like he hadn't done anything worthwhile. Now, I know my uncle's story. He came from nothing. There was a time when he was young, he went to the store to buy ice cream. He brought 2 containers to the counter and realized he had no money. He had to put them back and he was totally embarrassed. And he promised himself in that moment that that would be the last time that that ever happened. He went on to have a very successful career. He operated multiple Chick-fil-A restaurants and he made really good money. He never had to worry about his finances again. But sitting there at 84 reviewing his life, he was looking at the wrong footage. Earlier that same night, he'd mentioned something almost in passing. There's a group of 7 people who invite him to dinner about every 6 weeks. They never let him pay. These are people he mentored over the years. People he helped become restaurant operators themselves at Chick-fil-A. One of them started working with Bob when he was just 16 years old. Bob saw something in that kid and shaped him into the man he is today. So I stopped him. I said, Bob, how can you say you haven't done anything meaningful? Those 7 people and their families and their families, their lives are completely different because of you. That's why they gather every 6 weeks. That's why they won't let you pay. You changed the trajectory of their entire lives. So he pushes back a little and says, yeah, but, I hate when people do things for me. I don't like it when people pay. See, he likes being the one who gives. And that's when it hit me. That's his purpose. The giving itself, not the recognition, not the gratitude, the act of investing in someone else. Here's the thing. Bob couldn't see his own impact until someone reflected it back to him. He needed an external perspective to see what was always there. That's the life review. When Newton's subjects describe experiencing their lives from others' perspectives, feeling the impact they had, seeing the ripples they created, that's what's happening. You're finally seeing the complete picture, not just the footage, but everyone else's too. I gave my uncle a small version of that experience at the dinner table. Imagine what it's like when you have access to all of it. So let's bring this back to the framework. If consciousness isn't generated by the brain, if all of your memories and experiences are stored locally in 86 billion neurons, then the life review is impossible. You can't access data you never recorded. You can't experience perspectives you never had. But if consciousness is distributed, if your brain is the interface and the real data lives somewhere else, then everything Newton documented makes sense. The separation at death, the edge device goes offline, but the connection remains. The tunnel, a transition between networks. The homecoming, reuniting with the souls you've traveled with across lifetimes. The life review, accessing the complete data set. Not just your local cache, but the full record stored in superconsciousness. This isn't just a metaphor. This is a framework that actually explains the data. And look, I'm not asking you to believe this because it feels good. I'm asking you to consider it because it's coherent. It explains phenomena that the materialistic model can't touch. So that's the journey home, at least the broad strokes. In future episodes, we'll be going way deeper. We'll explore what happens when souls get stuck and what that might tell us about ghosts and hauntings. We'll talk about spirit guides and the counsels that Newton's subjects describe. We'll dig into the planning process for the next life and why souls sometimes choose difficult incarnations. I can't wait for that one. But for now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you had a near-death experience? Have you lost someone and felt their presence afterward? Have you had moments where you knew something you couldn't possibly know? Drop it in the comments. Every data point matters in this investigation. And if this episode connected with you, subscribe to the channel. We're just getting started, and thanks for being here, and welcome to the Distributed Mind. See you next time.